Ruby Hill Park Asbestos and Soils Training, educating city employees about the rules associated with recognizing and reporting soil disturbance at Ruby Hill Park. Ruby Hill Park. Ruby Hill Park is known for its open spaces, multiple amenities, and as a concert venue. However, at one time, Ruby Hill was a historic urban fill site or dump. For many decades, it's where building materials were buried. Recent park renovations have unearthed building materials at multiple levels of digging and during various types of soil-disturbing actions. The building material that is discovered includes debris mixed with soils and other natural items such as rock, sod, and root materials. Many of the building materials contain asbestos and pose a risk to human health if they become uncovered and released into the air during soil-disturbing activities. Buried building debris in Denver parks. Having buried debris at Ruby Hill Park is not unique or unusual. Many parks throughout Denver are in similar situations. However, Ruby Hill has the largest known concentration of buried debris in our parks system. It is the city's responsibility to identify this potentially dangerous debris and manage it according to environmental regulations. The map's orange areas indicate other locations where buried debris have been encountered in other parks, along riverbanks, and in open fields owned and operated by the City and County of Denver. Soil disturbing actions at Ruby Hill Park. The city has entered into an agreement with the State Health Department that outlines our responsibilities whenever any soil is disturbed for any reason. This agreement is monitored by Denver Parks Department and by the Department of Public Health and Environment. For areas like Ruby Hill with known asbestos, the agreement outlines standard operating procedures for excavation practices. It's very important that this plan be followed to protect both the workers and the public's health and to limit liability. Certified Asbestos Building Inspector, CABI. Any soil disturbing action at Ruby Hill Park must be done in the presence of a certified asbestos building inspector, CABI. A CABI is a trained person who can oversee and direct actions away from disturbing debris that can contain asbestos and present a health risk. In 2017, 6 parks employees and 1 DOTI employee received CABI certification. Do not begin digging until a CABI is present and ready to oversee your soil disturbing actions. Your supervisor knows the protocol for reaching the CABI team. What is asbestos? Asbestos is a naturally occurring mineral that, although largely outlawed in the U.S., is still mined throughout the world today. Asbestos exhibits unique properties and characteristics and for decades was used in many building products made in the U.S. Asbestos is fireproof. Asbestos improves the strength when added to other building components. Asbestos does not conduct electricity. And asbestos is generally impervious to chemicals. Asbestos can be found in dozens of building materials. The building materials that most commonly contain asbestos include ceiling or wall textures, roofing materials, cement piping, floor tiles. Many of these building materials have been identified at Ruby Hill Park during soil disturbing actions. These materials are seen as debris, broken materials, when unearthed and may pose a health risk if not managed correctly. Asbestos, inhalation hazard. Unearthed debris that contains asbestos is often degraded or significantly damaged from past demolition and decades of weathering. This debris can release asbestos fibers, which are microscopic in size and able to bypass the body's dust-capturing defenses. These microscopic asbestos fibers can easily become airborne and be inhaled deep into the lungs. Once inside our lungs, our body's foreign object defense mechanisms cannot break down these mineral asbestos fibers. Asbestos-related diseases. Inhalation of asbestos fibers can lead to asbestosis, a scarring of the lung tissue in the alveoli, the air sacs in the lungs, mesothelioma, an asbestos fiber-caused cancer of the pleural covering, the membrane lining the outside of the lungs, plaques or hardening of the pleural covering or diaphragm area, lung cancer. Ingestion or swallowing of asbestos fibers during consumption of food, drink, can lead to cancers in the esophagus, larynx, stomach, colon, and kidney. Exposure and risk. Exposure to asbestos fibers does not automatically mean you will experience an asbestos-related disease. There are many factors that determine health effects and how severe they will be. These factors include how many fibers have entered the body, how long the exposure occurred, were the asbestos fibers inhaled or ingested. The time between initial exposure and an appearance of a disease usually takes 15 to 30 years or more to develop. In general, those who experience asbestos-related diseases have been exposed to high concentrations of airborne asbestos fibers for long periods of time. The effect of smoking and asbestos fiber inhalation. According to the Center for Disease Control, cigarette smoking is the #1 risk factor for lung cancer. In the U.S., cigarette smoking is linked to 80 to 90% of all lung cancer deaths. Persons who smoke a pack a day increase their risk of lung cancer by 10 times. Workers exposed to airborne asbestos fibers historically increase their risk of developing lung cancer by 5 times. These two factors working together are a synergistic effect, meaning a smoker exposed to asbestos fiber is at least 50 times more likely to develop lung cancer. What debris containing asbestos can look like. During a soil disturbing action at Ruby Hill, it is very important to follow the direction provided by the cabbie. The cabbie will observe the spoil piles for types of debris. Debris is most often in the form of brick, asphalt roofing, and broken asbestos pipe. Ruby Hill Park and soil ash. The story goes that Ruby Hill Park received its name from the controlled fires that burned throughout the night that glowed ruby red on the hills of this future park. The burning of trash and building materials was once allowed in the city and a very common way to reduce waste volume, which increased the dump's capacity to receive waste materials. Today, ash can be uncovered during soil disturbing actions and is known to contain asbestos fibers. Since asbestos does not burn, asbestos fibers from ash are concentrated and easily airborne. What to do if you find building debris at Ruby Hill Park. Stop all soil disturbing actions immediately. Leave all associated digging equipment in place where the debris was seen. Move away from the debris and equipment. Alert your project supervisor and a cabbie for next steps. In cases of emergency digging, your supervisor is aware of the protocols. For all questions related to this topic, please contact the Department of Public Health and Environment, Environmental Land Use and Planning, Asbestos Program, Steve Gonzalez at 303-880-0981, Pete Cates at 303-918-8062. Music courtesy of the High Strung String Band.